Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this session on integrating nature into health into nature-based solutions. As you all know, the theme for this year of the PMAC is setting a new health agenda at the nexus of climate, environment, and biodiversity. And that's precisely what we are doing by having PMAC's very first session on nature-based solutions. So we're very excited to have you here. We're very excited to have a very esteemed group of panelists that are both with us here and some that are online. So before we begin, I'm just going to make sure that those that are joining us online, Ali and Jonathan, are you there and can you hear us? We certainly hope they can. There we have them.
Can you hear us, Christina?
It's terrific. Welcome, Ali. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you so very much for joining us. We very much look forward to your presentations. So I think that we all know that a lot of the solutions to the common public health and environmental health challenges that we are facing today really can only be found through cross-sectoral and interdisciplinary knowledge exchange, action, and policy. And I think that through this session, one of the things that we aim to do is really showcase how coherent, inclusive, and evidence-based policies at the public health, environment, and climate nexus through the lens of nature-based solutions can help to prevent future health risks that are associated with biodiversity loss, with ecosystem degradation, with climate change, really the threats that are at the core of this PMAC conference, so that we can chart, if you will, a common path toward the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals collectively, and so that we can really raise the ambition of the health sector to bring us there. But just very briefly, what are nature-based solutions? So they're essentially actions to protect, conserve, restore, and sustainably use and manage natural or modified ecosystems, whether those be freshwater ecosystems, coastal ecosystems, marine ecosystems, essentially to address social, economic, and environmental challenges both effectively and adaptively, while also providing co-benefits to human well-being. So just last year, the international community at the UN Environmental Assembly adopted the very first common definition of nature-based solutions. And that definition is also very closely aligned with the definition of nature-based solutions that had been put forth and has been used for many, many years and through many consultative processes by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the IUCN. And we're very, very pleased to have the IUCN here with us because, as you will see from the presentation that will be given by my esteemed colleague, Ali Raza Rivzi, who is the head of climate change at the IUCN, there really are a tremendous amount of health co-benefits that can be derived from nature-based solutions. And this isn't something that just arose today that is the product of, the global pandemic that we've all been facing for the past couple of years. It's a result of experiences that have been in the making, in some instances, for millennia, through the actions of Indigenous people. And there's solutions that also must be co-created collectively. So without further ado, Ali, over to you to talk to us about nature-based solutions and about what this global standard for nature-based solutions is.
Thank you, Christina. I wonder if slides are there. So yes, could you please put the slides up? Welcome, colleagues, to this event, and thank you for joining us for this incredibly important dialogue on nature based solutions, climate change, biodiversity, and health. On behalf of the IUCN, the world's largest environmental network, many thanks to the PMAC organizers for their innovative thinking in the conference theme for the year, setting a new agenda at the nexus of climate change, environment, and biodiversity, and hosting this session on the role of nature based solutions for health. I believe this is the first year the IUCN has been invited to be involved in the PMAC conference. We at IUCN are environmental and climate experts, not necessarily public health expert. However, this event today is representative of the fact that global understanding has been building that biodiversity and nature underpin the functioning of our societies, the well-being of our cities and communities, and public health outcomes. Without a healthy planet, we cannot have healthy societies and healthy people. And yet, these are natural systems are under threat. You all know from continued in ecosystem degradation and a changing climate leading to poor health outcomes around the world, especially in the most vulnerable communities. The science is clear. This decade represents an absolutely critical window for tackling the interconnected biodiversity, land degradation, and climate crises. And these crises are causing rampant health impacts. But working with nature through nature based solutions offer a framework for addressing these challenges and a critical pathway to address the health risk associated with ecosystem degradation, biodiversity loss, and climate change. Uh, as you know, we all talk about nature-based solutions every day, but to get to everyone on the same page, what do we mean when we say nature-based solutions? So Christina has already shared the definition. So these actions, help us to protect, conserve, restore, and sustainable use the biodiversity. And NBS can be implemented, on its own, like restoration, gray-green infrastructure, such as protection of mangroves and sand dunes to build the resilience of coastal cities, to sea level rise and storms. Nature-based solutions have the potential to save up to 10 gigaton of carbon dioxide per year, more than the emissions from the entire global transportation sector, as well as the potential to reduce the intensity of climate hazards by around 26%, represented averted climate impact at a saving of around 100 billion by 2030 and another 400 billion by 2050. Next slide, please. So objectives are that we, in the context of climate change mitigation and adaptation, the implementation of NBS can help us with so many challenges: disaster risk reduction, economic and social development, water security, food security, ecosystem degradation and biodiversity loss, and of course, human health. Next one, please. So NBS can contribute to human health and well-being in many ways, such as improving air quality, enhancing access to safe water and sanitation, creating sustainable and healthy food systems to prevent malnutrition, building the climate resilience of communities to hazards such as heat waves, storms, floods, and reducing exposure to vector-borne diseases such as malaria, dengue, mitigation and long-term impact of rising global temperature and the health impacts of a changing climate, urban green spaces and access to nature for mental health, and protecting and restoring nature and reducing contact between wildlife, livestock, pathogens, and people for zoonotic pandemic prevention. Next one, please. So the key consideration on NBS and health are that biodiversity and ecosystems and a stable climate are essential to human health. NBS actions represent an integrative framework to address the underlying drivers of health outcomes. In order for us to deploy and scale NBS to drive outcomes for nature, people, and health, cross sector collaboration between the conservation and health is critical to our success. The conservation sector cannot implement NBS in isolation if we are to ensure health outcomes of these interventions. We must work together. Partnerships between public health experts, environmental and climate practitioners, national and international policymakers, and local and indigenous communities can maximize these synergies between public health, climate change adaptation, and nature conservation. Thirdly, one of the major pillars of successful NBS is that the design, governance, and implementation of solutions must be underpinned by equity. We must enable the design of locally led solutions and work together with the communities most impacted. And finally, implementation of NBS must ensure the highest environmental and societal safeguards in order to ensure success, prevent misuse, and avoid maladaptation. Next slide. Just a bit very quickly about the global standard for nature-based solution. IUCN began pioneering the concept of nature-based solutions many years ago, first developing a formal definition and then the global standard for nature-based solutions as a safeguard for their use. The standard was developed over 2 years of public consultation with more than 800 contributors. The standard serves as a benchmark and accountability framework for NBS and ensures that the interventions follow best environmental and social safeguards. The standard is a free tool for practitioners to utilize in the design and assessment of NBS to ensure that interventions adhere to global best practices. I'm also very happy to share that WHO and IUCN are currently collaborating on producing health sector specific guidance on designing nature-based solutions for health outcomes, which is planned to be launched later this year. Next one. So just thanking you and look forward to hearing from rest of the speakers today and working together to drive actions for nature, climate, and people and health. Thank you. Over to you, Christina.
A huge thank you to you, Ali. You have managed to pack a wealth of information in a very short presentation. So we're very grateful for that. And I'm sure everyone in the room has a better idea of what nature-based solutions really are and the potential that they actually provide to maximize co-benefits. Ali, my apologies. I meant to introduce you more than you were. You wear so many hats, and we won't go through all of them because the bios are all on the website. But I do want to acknowledge and thank the work that we do collaboratively together. So Ali is my co-chair for the WHO and IUCN Expert Working Group on Biodiversity, Climate, One Health, and Nature-Based Solutions. So it really is a pleasure to have been working with him and with many others toward the development of this forthcoming nature-based solutions for health report that Ali just mentioned. So the cat is out of the bag. And while WHO, IUCN, and ICLE will be holding the pen, this really is a collective report. And it's not about us. It's not about the organizations that are holding the pen. It's about you and learning from you and incorporating any examples and best practices that you would like to share and see scaled up moving forward. So we're very excited to have with us here today some examples of how that can actually happen. As Ali just said, nature-based solutions can actually present a third 1/3, over 30% of the climate solutions needed to meet the commitments of the Paris Agreement. That is significant. They're not a panacea, and they're not standalone solutions. There is no panacea. I think everyone in this room is aware of that. But they're an essential way forward. And what an opportunity that is for us all to work together to maximize these co-benefits. So that presentation was absolutely wonderful. And Ali, I hope that you can stay with us for a little while, just in case there are questions, and I'm sure there are. So please start jotting them down for the Q&A session. And I acknowledge that you are reaching us from DC, where it is currently very late, but we're very grateful for your resilience. So following that presentation, we saw, well, it can maximize co-benefits to human health in various ways, by increasing water access to fresh water, by increasing food security, by decreasing maternal and child mortality, for example. So I think now what you would all like to see, what we would all like to see, is how exactly that plays out on the ground. How can we really meaningfully develop, co-design a nature-based solutions project that has meaningful impact? And that brings us to our next speaker. I could not possibly be more excited than to have with us Jonathan Jennings, who is the Executive Director of Health in Harmony. So Jonathan, after over, I think, 2 decades of leading humanitarian work in post-conflict emergency medical teams in various parts of the world, he felt like he was waking up every day going to work to deal with the humanitarian fallout of a sick planet. And I think that many of us in this room can share in that sentiment. So what he did was follow his vision for change into the new field of planetary health. And I think that Ali has already mentioned, and Jonathan will also make clear, how integrated approaches to health, such as One Health, such as planetary health, are absolutely essential moving forward. And through Health in Harmony has implemented projects in 3 parts of the world already that are being scaled up to maximize co-benefits for people and planet. So Jonathan, are you here with us?
I am, Christina. Hi, can you hear me?
Absolutely. We hear you. We see you. Everything is perfect. And we are so delighted to have you here with us. Cannot wait for you to share the Health in Harmony experience. I won't give it away. It's for you to do.
Well, Christina, I am really delighted and humbled to be here with you. Thank you so much. Ali, it was a pleasure to hear you speak. Emily, thank you, and to everyone else who's involved in the panel. I'm really honored to be a part of this and applaud WHO and IUCN's partnership. I don't know if my slides are available. Are they up yet?
They're up and beautiful. We see the cover slide right now.
Great. Okay. We have never lived in a world where the health of humans and the health of ecosystem biodiversity and the health of our planet could be effectively addressed in silos. Yet this is precisely how our public health institutions and our nature conservation institutions and our climate institutions have been established in the last 50 or 100 years, siloed, isolated, and apart from one another. I think a case in point is that the climate and biodiversity crises are 2 sides of the same coin, yet they are dealt with at separate annual COP conferences. And you all very well know that our species, Homo sapiens, we are but one member of the animal kingdom. We are part of the ecological web of life. And whatever we do to this web, we do to ourselves. And sadly, thanks largely to our human behavior in industrialized nations over the last 150 years or so, nearly every ecosystem on planet Earth, aquatic and terrestrial, is in jeopardy of being irreversibly altered. And this is not good news, because our species evolved with these ecosystems. We evolved because of these ecosystems, and our health, and indeed the longevity of our civilizations, depend on the healthy functioning of nature's ecosystems. May I have the next slide, please? Which begs the question, why are our health systems so narrowly focused on disease burden in only one species, humans, us, neglecting almost entirely the health of ecosystems on which our health depends? Or said differently, are global health strategies actually capable of securing long-term human health outcomes if our health systems aren't built with the purpose of securing both human health and ecosystem health? May I have the next slide? The organization that I lead is called Health in Harmony. We are a 15-year-old planetary health organization, as Christina said. We are planetary health in action because our work alongside rainforest communities around the world improves both human well-being and improves rainforest ecosystem health. We're not a global health organization, though healthcare delivery typically anchors our intersectional interventions. And we're not a conservation organization, though our mission is to reverse the loss of tropical rainforests in order to curb global heating, the climate crisis, and nature's collapse. We think of ourselves as a thriving futures organization, and we have 15 years worth of experience learning how to operationalize the fundamental interdependence between the health of humans, the health of ecosystem biodiversity, and the health of our planet. Now, we focus on rainforest ecosystems because guarding and expanding Earth's tropical rainforests is one of the most affordable and effective ways for humanity to reverse global heating and to protect biodiversity. Tropical rainforests, as you probably know, they cover less than 4% of Earth's surface, but they house more than 50% of Earth's terrestrial species and store about 50% of Earth's tree-based carbon. Now, when it comes to knowing how best to protect and expand Earth's tropical rainforests, local, indigenous, and traditional rainforest communities are the experts. Not me, not us, not Health in Harmony. So we enter these rainforest communities and we practice a methodology that we've developed called radical listening. May I have the next slide? Radical listening is a simple methodology that we've created and refined, and it emphasizes listening to communities without judgment or inner bias. And most importantly, listeners are committed to invest precisely in the solutions that the communities themselves design, whether the listener thinks that the solution can be effective or not. Radical listening starts by asking rainforest communities a very simple question. And I want you to hear the anti-colonial mindset and the ethos of reciprocity in the question. We say to rainforest communities, you are the guardians of a precious rainforest that impacts the health of the planet and the health of any person wherever they live on this planet. How might the world community assist you to protect and expand this rainforest as a thank you for your guardianship of it? And then we listen. We listen for hours, documenting the various activities, the various solutions that, when combined into a systems approach, will allow rainforest communities to, for example, put down their chainsaws and stop logging, or perhaps stop mining, artisanal mining. Now, in 2007, at our first site, our proof of concepts site in West Kalimantan in Indonesian Borneo, we conducted dozens of hours of radical listening exercises with hundreds of people in 40 separate communities bordering Gunung Palung National Park rainforest. These communities concluded through radical listening that they could stop logging and protect their approximately 120,000 hectare rainforest if they had access to two things: access to quality, affordable health care and access to just transitions into alternative livelihoods such as organic farming. They taught us that they had almost no other economic opportunity except to cut down and sell rainforest trees for the cash they needed to survive. And the critical driver was to be able to afford the out-of-pocket costs of their healthcare and medical emergencies, which, as you know, include the cost of travel to faraway hospitals, the cost of caretaker lodging several days during hospitalization, and the opportunity costs to a family when their primary providers are away from their villages. May I have the next slide, please? So that's exactly what we did. We trusted their guidance. And in 2007, in collaboration with local and regional government authorities, Health and Harmony invested precisely in the systems-oriented solution that the communities designed. And we established a medical clinic on the edge of the rainforest, and we initiated jobs training in alternative livelihoods, mainly in organic farming, but also in other trades, to justly transition thousands of loggers into safer, better paying jobs. Now, our model is based on reciprocity agreements that communities design. So in return for health and livelihoods programs, communities designed a healthcare model that linked the rates of logging in their villages to healthcare costs at the clinic. So lower rates of logging resulted in lower out-of-pocket contributions to care, and logging was monitored by forest guardians. These are salaried individuals identified from within the communities themselves. And communities ensured that even the poorest people amongst them could access healthcare through non-cash payment options for healthcare at the clinic in the form of tree seedlings and manure, which are used in the program's livelihood and reforestation programs. They designed a chainsaw buyback program to invest startup capital in loggers who did not own their own land to farm, but who were ready to transition out of logging and into small business ownership. May I have the next slide, please? And the communities were right. Our listening and trust-based investments in their intersectional solutions worked remarkably well. We gave the first 10 years of program data from this proof of concept site in Borneo to scientists at Stanford University, and their analysis culminated in the publication of our 10-year impact in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences here in the US. And the biodiversity luminary that many of you will know, the late Thomas Lovejoy, edited this paper, and his vote of confidence in our work was a terrific, terrific honor. Now, I want to call your attention to the paper's title, which you can see at the top right of the slide. And I want to draw your attention to the explicit links called out here between human health, rainforest health, carbon sequestration, and planetary cooling. The analysis in this paper demonstrates that between 2008 and 2018, so during this decade, Health and Harmony's investment of $5.2 million US into these community design solutions resulted in some very impressive outcomes across the planetary health or One Health landscape, which includes a 90% reduction in the number of households reliant on logging for their livelihood. This facilitated 70% less forest loss in the program area compared to the control groups. This prevented the loss of $65 million US worth of above ground carbon from being released into the atmosphere. Now, we report this carbon in monetary value, not because we support the monetization of nature, but because we believe that it might suggest an option to governments for how to finance planetary health, One Health interventions like this. We saw nesting sites for 2,500 individuals of the critically endangered Borneo orangutan proliferate in the study area. And we're only really starting to understand the positive effects, the full positive effects on biodiversity. Now, from a human health perspective, our clinic's catchment area included a population of about 80 to 100,000 people. This intervention contributed to a 67% reduction in infant mortality inside this catchment area, and a significant decline in the prevalence of common killers and common morbidities such as malaria, tuberculosis, and non-communicable diseases such as diabetes. we trusted the people of Borneo's wisdom, and they quite naturally designed a new kind of health system, one that links their own well-being outcomes to the well-being outcomes of their rainforest ecosystem. The people were happier and healthier, biodiversity thrived, and rainforests cooled the planet. We thanked these communities by transferring resources into their solutions, and they thanked us by protecting a lung of the planet. May I have the next slide? Based on the success of that first program in Borneo, we began replicating our approach beside rainforest communities in the middle lands of the Xingu Basin in the Brazilian Amazon, and also at Manombo Special Reserve in Southeast Madagascar. And we've seen a pattern emerge since 2007. Firstly, in our experience listening across the tropics to communities, all indigenous and local rainforest communities that we've met understand the life-giving value of their rainforests. None of them want to see these forests disappear. Second, the solutions for forest protection and expansion that they design are consistently systems-oriented and intersectional. Their solutions are never sector-based, never just about healthcare access alone, or just about livelihoods alone, or agriculture, or education, or microfinance alone. And third, access to quality, affordable healthcare consistently anchors rainforest communities' ability to protect and expand their rainforests, but only when health access is in concert with other elements, such as just transition into economically beneficial alternative livelihoods and mechanisms to improve food security. May I have the next slide? In Manombo Reserve in Southeast Madagascar, we work with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and national park authorities. Despite having legally protected status, the Manombo rainforest in Madagascar is shrinking rapidly. Local rainforest communities suffer from impoverishment, widespread malnutrition due to food insecurity, and challenging healthcare access. Climate change only adds to those stresses by causing more frequent droughts, more frequent and severe cyclones, and these shorten the growing season. So communities are driven in turn to degrade forests through slash and burn agriculture, logging, and hunting wild animals. During our radical listening exercises in 2019, these communities of Manombo Rainforest designed a system solution that links access to primary health care to climate resilient agricultural training for improved food security and education for their children. Our Malagasy medical team partners with Ministry of Health staff to provide mobile health clinics in locations selected by the communities. Then, to enhance land use and to minimize deforestation and forest fires, communities designed training programs in regenerative agriculture so that they could shift away from slash and burn agriculture. And these agricultural trainings focus on three things. First, fast-growing rice varieties, which allow 3 harvests per year, even though the growing seasons are variable and shrinking. Number 2, composting to rejuvenate barren soil. And number 3, organic vegetable gardening to support diverse diets. Now, this program maintains and enhances crop variety to support diversified diets. It integrates climate-smart crop management, which will lead to higher yield agriculture and nutrient-dense diets as the climate changes. Training in agroforestry improves food security while also improving buffer zones around the rainforest to reduce edge effects and protect biodiversity. Communities designed reciprocity agreements in this program that rely on them to start seedling nurseries and reforest with those seedlings in return for the mobile clinics and the regenerative agricultural trainings. This intersectional solution will allow them to enter the hunger season healthier and with better food security, which reduces the probability that they will be forced to rely on extractive coping strategies like logging to sell charcoal to cope during the hunger season, for example. May I have the next slide? And though this program is very young in Madagascar, satellite carbon data generated by our partners at Woodwell Climate Research Center shows that the consistent deforestation from 2003 to 2017 may be starting to stabilize, and the forest may be starting to regenerate from 2018 when Health and Harmony started investing in those community design solutions. So again, their solution may prove to draw down carbon for the planet, as well as protect and expand habitat for Madagascar's incredible biodiversity and many critically endangered species. May I have the next slide? Very few studies have evaluated the One Health interactions of land use change, wildlife, and human disease in any sort of experimental framework. Last year, with these interdisciplinary research partners that you can see at the bottom right of this slide, at our Manumbo program site, we started looking specifically at the influence of land use change on biodiversity health and spillover risk, and at the quantitative linkages between ecological restoration and human health benefits. This Manumbo region of Madagascar provides a really unique opportunity to study the One Health benefits of integrated conservation and human health programs. Degraded forests have been shown to increase the risk of infectious disease transmission, such as malaria and typhoid, while insufficient access to healthcare and food often leaves communities with no option but to further encroach upon and degrade the forest, exposing themselves to, we think, higher probability of pathogen spillover. May I have the next slide? In Madagascar and in Brazil, just as in Borneo back in 2007, rainforest communities are designing solutions for forest protection that operationalize the dependencies between their human well-being and the health of the rainforests that they inhabit. In effect, they're reimagining the very scope of what a health system should be. They understand that their human health depends on their ecosystem's health. So the health system they design seeks to secure both improved human health and improved rainforest ecosystem health. And we believe that Health and Harmony's radical listening approach provides a unique framework to governments to simultaneously achieve multiple sustainable development goals, including human health, biodiversity, and climate positive outcomes. May I have the next slide? Can national health systems be reimagined? Can they be reimagined according to this broader planetary health understanding demonstrated consistently by the nature-based wisdom of indigenous, traditional, and local rainforest peoples? If so, then based on our evidence, we at Health and Harmony hypothesize that health systems globally could anchor a planet-wide solution to the climate and biodiversity crises. Humanity's grand challenges are interdependent, and so are the solutions. So we believe that our public health policies must move beyond our institutional silos and address these challenges as the interdependent issues that they are. And thank you so much, Christina. Thank you, everyone. Back over to you.
And thank you so much, Jonathan, for that inspiration. You know, why are our health systems so narrowly focused only on one species? And can these health systems be reimagined to face humanity's grand challenges in a different way, more collectively? And I think that's exactly what you are doing at Health and Harmony. And this is a perfect example of how we can set a new health agenda at the nexus of climate, environment, and biodiversity, and catalyze health leadership. So thank you so much for sharing that that very inspiring award-winning model that Health and Harmony provides. Please stay with us, even though it's getting later for you, as well as I'm sure many questions will come up in the Q&A period. And now I would invite all our other fellow panelists to please come up on stage. It is an honor to have you all here with us. And building on that example that that Jonathan just described, I'm also very pleased to present Elizabeth Ployce, who serves as the Deputy Chief a division chief for maternal and newborn health. In fact, one of the very first things she said was, we really like the Health in Harmony model. So I thought I would pass that on to you, Jonathan. But understandably so, given that there are very real and tangible impacts on reducing maternal and childhood mortality with models such as these. But there are others. There are other ways to inspire nature-based solutions that are comprehensive. And with that, I do invite Elizabeth, who works as the Deputy Division Chief at USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development's Global Health Bureau specifically, where she leads the Global Health Bureau's engagement on climate change. There, she also champions efforts to address environmental, social, and economic determinants of health and managed programs focused on numerous topics, which include clinical trials, tuberculosis treatment, maternal and newborn health innovations, health resilience, and supply chain management. And we are very fortunate to have her with us here today to talk about nature-based solutions.
Thank you very much, Christina. I'm happy to be here today. As Christina said, I'm with the U.S. Agency for International Development in the Global Health Bureau, and I'm eager to share some of USAID's work on nature-based solutions. You've already heard some of the great evidence for both the need for nature-based solutions and some of what they can provide. So I'll quickly jump in to some case studies that we're doing. But before I do that, I'd like to note that in our climate strategy that USAID released last April, there are 5 embedded principles. This means they cut across all intended outcomes and results of the strategy. And this strategy is meant to cut across all technical sectors of USAID. And one of these is nature-based solutions. So you can see already that that is key to our climate objectives. But I'd also like to point out that you'll see locally led development and also equity and inclusion are also foundational principles. And that's critical for all our work, but especially considering nature-based solutions work. The solutions really need to be developed with the local community, and you heard a wonderful example from Health with Harmony, and especially also with Indigenous people who have connections to the land. So that's essential to keep in mind as we're developing these approaches. So my first example is about nature-based solutions for adaptation, and in this case, flood risk management. USAID partnered with the World Wildlife Foundation through their Environment and Disaster Management Program to develop nature-based flood management resources. And this includes the Natural and Nature-Based Flood Management, a green guide, often referred to as the Flood Green Guide, to support the use of natural and nature-based methods for flood management. And this guide provides practical guidance and tools to understand the local context related to flood risk, leading those responsible for flood management through analysis, method selection, and decision-making at multiple stages in the typical flood risk management process. It's designed for those involved in flood management, such as municipal governments, but also community groups and NGOs. And information about downloading it is available on the website if anyone is interested. There's also an accompanying knowledge map, and it's a web-based tool that helps users explore and navigate the various subject areas in the guide. And it provides short descriptions of each topic along the way, links to relevant resources, and it also visually illustrates the interconnections among the various subject areas. The World Wildlife Fund also conducts trainings, both virtual and in person. You can see that here are a variety of the locations that they've done trainings in the recent past. And these trainings include a variety, they cover a range of topics, including flood risk analysis, climate assessments, objective settings, method selection, community engagement, and more. And the methodology includes use of videos, presentations, and individual and participatory group exercises. And we've heard great responses about the training so far. Depending on the context and the options selected, the flood management plans should reduce the destruction and immediate death toll due to floods. But also, we expect that the health impacts that often come later, especially related to waterborne diseases and contaminated drinking water, will also be reduced. And as we heard earlier from Ali, the increase in urban green spaces has tremendous impacts on a variety of environmental determinants of health. So we're very excited, depending on the exact options that are chosen for the flood management plan, it really could have those benefits as well. But we have a video here that can also give you a bit of an introduction to this topic.
Communities all across the globe are affected by floods. Communities of every size, shape, and location. And these floods happen in your community's watershed, an amazing system of physical, ecological, and social components that are constantly working together across floodplain, community, and household scales. And while floods often pose serious problems to residents, to infrastructure, and to local economies, floods can also be a natural process and can play an important role in a community. For example, by depositing nutrients necessary for agriculture. That's why it's critical to understand what contributes to flood risk, how to minimize potential damage, and how to maximize potential benefits of floodwaters. The new Natural and Nature-Based Flood Management, a Green Guide, presents flood risk management as a comprehensive approach, explaining how nature-based techniques can help reduce risk and provide community benefits while complementing engineering options. For example, some communities might benefit from a combination of upstream reforestation and small dams to retain water, and the creation of green roofs for water absorption in downstream urban areas, while another community might get more benefit from a combination of wetland restoration and improving engineered drainage systems. The key is to find the right combination of options to meet your specific challenges, while being flexible enough to allow for future changes, such as changes in land use or climate, and ultimately making your community stronger, safer, and more resilient. That's Green Flood Management. Innovative guidance that provides forward-looking, practical, natural, and nature-based options for communities all across the world. No matter where you live. To find out more, visit www.envirodm.org.
Excellent, thank you. I'll now jump to our next case study, and this is following on a theme that you've heard already in this session and in several others this week, and that's cross-sectoral collaboration. So I'd like to, this project was inspired by some of our previous work with partners, including the Health with Harmony examples that we've heard, and also a project that we've had in Mozambique. And this is with the Gorongosa National Park. And since 2008, USAID invested nearly $50 million, which has been matched with funding from the Greg Carr Foundation and other partners for the conservation and development of Gorongosa National Park. Through reintroduction of key species that were lost during the Civil War, and increased protection and improved education, health, and water services, this Gorongosa project has restored ecosystem services, introduced sustainably grown coffee, cashews, and honey for the benefit of the local community, and has decreased early and child marriage in the buffer zone communities. It was so successful that in 2021, USAID and the Carr Foundation announced that they were extending the project for another 13 years. So in a sense, we're trying to replicate this 18 times for now. So this is HEARTH. This stands for Health, Ecosystems, and Agriculture for Resilient, Thriving Societies. And this started as a funding call for proposals for public-private partnerships, which was launched in 2019 to advance these cross-sectoral solutions that conserve threatened landscapes and benefit the well-being and the of the people who depend on them. And Hearth has three big themes. First, a very intentional and resourced cross-sectoral development approach so that expertise and resources from all relevant sectors is brought in. Second, to achieve scale, we're partnering with the private sector to make our investments go further and to be more sustainable. And finally, we decided we needed an explicit focus on good monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning from the beginning so we can build the evidence base for this type of approach, which is currently lacking. This slide shows the 18 partnerships across 10 countries, with each project including various combinations of focal areas. So far, we have 85 million of private sector resources leveraged. And this shows the variety of broad development outcomes that the various Hearth projects seek to influence. You can see that about 15 seek improvement in food security and nutrition, and 13 in health. A subset of these are investing in explicit health interventions, but others are hoping to see improvements in health based on other benefits from other sectoral, interventions of the project, such as improved watershed management. So we're also tracking those. Knowing this allows us to compare the various pathways through which each project hopes to achieve these various outcomes, and we can design common indicators to measure them. And all Hearth sites reflect various threats to the environment, including those you see here: habitat loss due to agricultural expansion and land use change, poaching, illegal mining and logging, fires, climate change, and so forth. But having knowledge of which threats are present in which setting allows us, again, to set up an analytical framework to explore the best ways to monitor progress. One specific example is the Gorilla Coffee Alliance, and this is located near the Kahuzi-Biega National Park in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. So here the idea is to improve the quantity and quality of coffee through regenerative agriculture and improved access to healthcare and conservation work and increased protection of the national park. So we anticipate that results will include improved economic well-being, health and nutrition of the communities, carbon sequestration and improved adaptive capacity for climate shocks and stressors, and conservation of the forests and the species that live in them. To accomplish this, there are a broad group of stakeholders involved. We have 2 private partners, Nespresso and Olam, a local health social enterprise called Asili, and 2 international nonprofits, the World Conservation Society and TechnoServe, and also USAID, both our mission or our office location in the DRC and also headquarters. And within USAID, we're also drawing on a variety of experts from food security, health, governance, environment sectors, as well as the private sector engagement experts. These activities are just getting up and running now, so we don't have the results yet. But here's what we've learned so far. As you've heard today and elsewhere, it is clear that we need to work together across sectors to solve these complex challenges. What's most difficult is actually navigating the social organizational complexities, not the technical aspects. And a lot of time is required to develop these projects. We use a common co-design approach and already accepted standards and indicators to facilitate the cross-project learning that we want to achieve. It's also necessary to integrate this robust monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning into the design from the very start. So I'll leave it here for now, but I look forward to discussion and questions later. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. More inspiration. And I hope everybody in this room feels as inspired as I do by these terrific examples where we can really see how to maximize co-benefits for people, for planet, and for present and future generations. And if that wasn't enough, we have a next speaker to further inspire us. And actually, it gives me a very distinct pleasure to to present the next speaker, because I'm sure several of us in this room have had the opportunity to visit the NAN sandbox. And of course, the first thing that comes to mind when you're at NAN is what a terrific emerging example this is of a nature-based solution. So I hope that many of you have had the opportunity to experience the NAN sandbox, and I think that probably gives away who that next speaker is. So Pipit Aniakanithi was actually a pharmacist by training, but then he was appointed as Cassie Corns Bank's president a few years back in 2017. And he is actually the one who introduced a medicinal-related solution to restore Nan Province's pristine headwater forest. So for those of you who have been there, you may be a little familiar with this example. And for those of you who haven't, here is a chance to learn. But here is also a chance to learn and think about, it's very important to develop and co-design these nature-based solutions. We were talking about, Elizabeth, you showed us what, so the impact and power of public-private partnerships are exactly. And that's exactly a consideration and a stumbling block, right? One of the challenges to be overcome in nature, in the development, design, and implementation of nature-based solutions aren't so much the technical aspects, as Elizabeth, you just pointed out, but financing is often a gap. So it gives me a distinct pleasure to welcome Pipit. Please.
Thank you, Christina, for such a wonderful introduction. Well, I'm very much delighted to join the PMAC 2023. And to be honest, I'm being bombarded with a lot of technical jargons. And this is my first time, to attend, to be a speaker in non-economic, non-finance, energy crisis kind of thing. I'm supposed to be talking about the energy crisis, inflation, or recession, right? But today I'm here. Before I start my session, I think please allow me, to conduct a quick survey. Christina mentioned a little bit. Any one of us sitting in this conference hall have gone to the field visit together with us in Nan province? Raise your hand, please. Wow. 30%. And for those of you who haven't been there, I'm sure that you have been aware of that, right, from the first opening session, right? So I just would like to structure my presentation to make sure that it will not last longer than 15 minutes. So thanks once again, for PMAC for having me today. I'm honored to be a stranger who has limited knowledge about public health and even the most relevant professional in this PMAC conference. But I'm glad to hear that healthcare is no longer limited to just healthcare, but has extended far and beyond, as the themes of this PMAC conference suggest, setting a new health agenda at the nexus of climate change, environment, and biodiversity. I think all the experts, in the previous session, in this session, they are talking about so many different things, not just only limited to the health of human. Having said that, I'm privileged to join this event once again, indeed full of new perspectives, new paradigms, new knowledge shared by experts, from many experts I'm very glad, I'm very overwhelmed today, to learn a lot about new things. So my team members at K-Bank are thrilled to learn that many of 70 field trip participants express appreciation to our NAN Sandbox project or initiative, you would say, for the problems we frame to address and the clear objectives we aim to achieve, as well as the speed rolling up sleeves to get things going. And some even give us highly valuable advice based on experience, right, of many different experts you have somewhere else in the world. Let me introduce our journey to become a bank of sustainability, integrating health into the nature-based solution. Actually, I didn't use the nature-based solution, but after NAN field trip, I learned a lot from you guys, expert. What are you doing exactly? Is this called the new terminology, nature-based solution? So actually, we were in search for the NAPI. You will hear from me later on. So natural active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? So, but now, this is new terminology, new jargon for me, right? This is nature-based solution. Well, as we have already begun 2023 journey, we have borne massive responsibility to our planet. For so long, the world has been dominated by capitalism architecture that drives profit maximization and the exploitation of our environment. And we tend to forget about it. We focus on money-making machine rather than the environment. As time passes, such an environment has become an alarming issue to our society, and its byproducts have taken their tolls upon us all. Consequently, the natures of our business and investment has been forced to change by global challenges affecting various aspects of humanity, including climate change, including demographic shifts, regulatory pressures, privacy, data securities, and so on. I think all of you might have been aware of. So my question is always about, have we reached the point of no return when it comes to the exploitation of Mother Nature? Unless business and societies will make a great U-turn to avoid a reversible perma-crisis. I think the name coined by the economists this year, perma-crisis, as like permafrost. But we are going to have the permanent crisis. Is this going to be really acceptable to every one of us here? This is my big question. So the question for us here is, how can we sustain our business in this truly unstable world? I have no answer, but just leave the answer, leave the question with you for the next session, in PMAC next year. So to me, it is to be in pursuit of one sustainability, which urges the sustainabilities of business and the sustainabilities of the world. With such strong belief, K-Bank has committed to doing more for greater good by harmonizing the environment and the well-being of people. We have enthusiastically transformed ourselves from being a merely profit-driven traditional bank into the bank of sustainability that incorporates ESG everyone has been aware of. But this is not enough. And also, we integrated the beyond banking agenda into our day-to-day operation. The awareness of the one sustainability has given us clear gliding path to push environmentally friendly goals and actions that are in line with the net zero greenhouse gas emissions obligation. So far, I think you might have asked question, right? You banker, have you done your job, right? And now you jump into doing something else. Just to let you know, so far we have achieved 12% greenhouse gas emission reduction in our internal operation. I think for the environmentalist or climate expert, this is called the scope 1. We are also planning to achieve 20% of our finance portfolio greenhouse gas emission reduction that complies with the Paris Agreement net zero pathway. And this will narrow down the prevailing gap that exists between us and the environment that we live in. Well, as banker, the belief in the sustainability of business in the past was more often than not glancing at the tip of the iceberg. What remains under is the deep diving efforts towards the sustainability of environment, where beyond banking will be the core of our business in the long run. Such foundation has resonated with One Health as it represents a shared devotion to conserve the health of people, animal, planet, and commensalism. I know the word, I remember the words from biology, some 30 years ago when I studied biology in the primary or the secondary school, right? That we live together right? It's a relationship, between human, animals, and even the parasites. It is the dedication that sparks the awareness of people's well-being, the improvement of safety nets of the marginalized society, marginalized people, and the creation of economic value to the society. We are bankers. We always talk about money. It is part of the life. This is the nature of human being. To bring that into the new perspective, we are pursuing nature-based solution to Nan, a home to one of the most important forest watersheds that connects environment and the people, that contributes more than 40% of the waters that make up Chao River, flowing from the northern Thailand to the central plain of Thailand, including Bangkok, and end up in the Gulf of Thailand. Non-sandbox initiatives launched through multi-sectoral collaboration to preserve watersheds, forests, and promote reforestation in Nan. It is a solution that will increase economic value, boost productivities of agricultural endowment, and promotes the cohabitation between humans and the nature. You might have seen, from the airplane, right? How serious the deforestation is right now. I would say 28% deforestation of non-forest. Without any innovative solution, it will be far beyond my imagination, I think, and our imagination that reforestation can be achieved. Being a good citizen, well, I'm a good guy, will not be compelling enough to complete this ambitious mission, as long as every one of us needs to feed the families, to meet and end needs, on the daily life. So you see the formula, shown by our chairman, 72, 18, and 10. It's just a formula in transition so that we can live together to transition to the next level of harmonization between human and nature. So the action we have seriously taken so far. At the non-sandbox, we recently established the K-Agro Innovation Institution, or KAI, under the Kasikon Thai Foundation sponsorship to carry out this ambitious initiative. In so doing, it is aiming to uplift agricultural and healthcare sectors by encouraging a shift from carbohydrate-based plants to much higher value medicinal plant. So this will be crucial to formulate NAPI, once again, natural active pharmaceutical ingredients, and ultimately be independent from utilizing non-timber forest products to create new business opportunities for the local communities. The examples of high economic value medicine and medicinal plants include, several things. As you can see from the slide presentation here, right? If I may write in time, not quite sure how many Thai here, Kamin Chan, Pet Sangkat, and so on. I think for those, who are the botanists might be able to really understand because of all the Latin word. KI has pledged to bring the local wisdom to the next level through research and development, commercialization, commoditization processes, thus creating highly marketable agricultural and healthcare products. We aim also to uplift the processing of agricultural products and engaging farmer and medical experts to increase the values of products. We basically transform a simple agro-produce into the natural active pharmaceutical ingredients you can take away from this session, NAPI, okay? To this end, KI is determined to form an end-to-end value chain of medicines from plants, which will be a game changer to solve cohabitating issues between people and the forest. And we, together with technical knowledge from our partners, you are also more than welcome. And the top research university in Thailand will be able to promote its sustainability enhancement journey and promote One Health to be in line with the UN SDG, the underlying agenda that everyone and every organization here in Thailand has strongly committed to. So non-sandbox set clear objectives in line with 5 UN SDG agendas, including no poverty, good health and well-being, climate inaction, life on land, and partnership for the goals, which is something very, very difficult, as Elizabeth just mentioned. This is not about, so now Christina's tried to sum up in the previous session that is not about the technical knowledge. It's something about financing, but as we are the financial institution, so it's not really important. But the very important is common understanding and common purpose, that we can work together to achieve, the common objective. And with such internationally aligned prospect, the sandbox is believed to be a proven success story that strives to recover from environmental damages and successfully become a model for the sustainable sandbox at a global scale. That is my hope. So please come and join our quest for sustainable solutions to preserve non-pristine source of water mass in order to further scale up our shared vision, our shared devotion. And at the end of the day, I wish that these chapters of cooperation will reflect the values of friendship between us as we gear toward delivering our shared mission in the interest of people, the communities, and beyond. And I intentionally use this picture taken on the mountain hill, right, as the previous session, in the dining, right? They used the picture taken for the other younger group. So this is, the real International Organizing Committee, right? Yeah. Okay, you were there, right? But you missed the second day of our activities. Okay, definitely. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that inspiring presentation, Pipit. That was absolutely brilliant. And it looks like we're exchanging a lot of technical jargon between us, right? So thank you. You learned nature-based solutions. And I've learned with some terror that we are entering a perma crisis, which I would very much like to avoid. And I think nature-based solutions are maybe part of the solution and way forward to precisely overcome that perma crisis in some communities. So thank you for that. And yes, absolutely, common understanding, common purpose, that is what should drive these initiatives. Understanding that there are co-benefits to actually be gleaned. And we're trying to say, well, it's not the technical alone that can potentially pose a barrier. It's not the economic alone that can potentially pose a barrier. It's as you say, it's not having this common understanding of what we can all derive from implementing, co-designing and implementing projects that are robust, that can be the major stumbling block. So thank you for that, Pipit. And actually, that's actually a very good segue into our next speaker, Loretta Rufo, who is a senior climate change specialist at the Climate Investment Funds. And she's the team lead for the CIF's pilot program for climate resilience and works across teams to ensure that adaptation and climate resilience is an integral objective for all of CIF's programming. So through her career, Lori's co-authored a number of publications on climate adaptation, providing insights and lessons on how we can integrate adaptation and climate risk management into planning and investments. So that leads us, I think it's a very nice segue from these examples of public-private partnerships that we've just heard. And really, maybe if we can delve a little bit deeper into that decision-making process, maybe you can provide some insight on how multilateral climate financing institutions and initiatives such as the climate investment funds can take into account the notion of maximizing health co-benefits through investment in nature-based solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change. So welcome, Lori. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you, Christina. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank PMAC for inviting me in this very important conference. Just like Mr. Pipit, I am also not a health specialist. I am a climate change specialist by training and by experience. And this particular conference actually opens up a lot of knowledge and understanding for me to understand what are the health issues we are confronted with and how I can link it to the work that we are doing under the climate investment funds. So let me start by looking into why we need nature-based solutions in addressing some of the climate change issues and important issues related to improving well-being of communities and the health of the people and also the health of the planet Earth. So more than half of the world's GDP is dependent on nature. Agriculture, food and beverages, and construction actually are the largest sectors dependent on nature, and they generate $8 trillion in gross value added. However, agriculture, land use, forestry are driving 23% of greenhouse gas emissions. And the unsustainable practices are destroying 24 billion tons of fertile soil each year. And if you can imagine, in the last century, the world has lost as much forest as we had lost in the last 9,000 years. And this is actually equivalent to an area the size of the United States. So there is a big opportunity to reduce emissions through the nature-based solutions. And according to UNEP and IUCN, by 2030, nature-based solution has the capacity to deliver emission reductions and removals of at least 10 gigatons of carbon dioxide per year. And I think our colleague Ali has emphasized this also in his presentation. Now, the healthy ecosystems, nature-based solutions, can actually promote healthy ecosystems, and healthy ecosystems is essential to the health, food security, nutrition, and economic well-being of people all over the planet. The multiple benefits of nature-based approaches are actually a lot, and apart from reducing greenhouse gas reduction, as alluded also by my previous colleagues and presenters here, they promote not only the health of human being, but also promotes One Health by recognizing the interconnection between people, animals, plants, and their shared environment. And with nature-based approaches, we contribute also to addressing climate change. We help communities adapt and be more resilient. We also improve their livelihood and also improve their well-being, and at the same time conserve biodiversity. Oh, sorry. So why did SIF actually invested in nature-based solution? So we know that nature-based solutions are not yet adopted at scale and not yet adopted at the pace that we want it to be. And both are possible and are urgently needed. And according to United Nations, the annual investments from the G20 nations alone will need to increase by an additional 165 billion per year. So this is basically an increase of 140% from existing levels to realize biodiversity and restoration and climate targets by 2050. So despite the notable progress on nature-based solutions, we know that significant challenges remain. So under the Climate Investment Program, we launched this new program called Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program. Just to give you a brief background on what is the Climate Investment Funds. So the Climate Investment Funds was established in 2008 as a learning laboratory for climate action. So far, since we were established, our funds have grown to more than $11 billion to implement the various programs and projects on climate mitigation and adaptation. So far, we already have 400 climate smart projects that are being implemented in 70 developing countries all over the world. So in implementing the Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program, what we are doing is to build on our experience on how to address nature and issues on climate change. So when we were established in 2008, we have the pilot program for climate resilience, which basically implements projects that help strengthen the resilience of land, coast, and resilience of people in the face of climate change. We also have the Forest Investment Program, which basically tackles the sustainable forest management and emission reductions from deforestation and degradation. So our new Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program is basically integrating the experience, the wisdom, and the knowledge that we have learned from the pilot program for climate resilience and the Forest Investment Program. So under the NPC program, we will employ nature-based solutions to tackle in a very integrated way the multiple drivers of and impacts of human activities and climate change on land, on coastal resources, and on ecosystem services. The program is also premised on a landscape approach and also the active engagement of indigenous people and local communities. We believe that the indigenous people and local communities are the best stewards of our nature, our forest and coastal ecosystem, and can effectively support climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts, while at the same time, they will also realize that protecting nature, protecting ecosystem services can contribute to multiple benefits, including on health outcomes. So under the Nature, People, Climate Investment Program, we will approach it in an integrated, multidisciplinary manner, combining natural resources management with environmental and livelihood considerations. And as you can see from this particular slide, we are trying to provide a balance in safeguarding the environment, safeguarding the natural resources, but at the same time, protecting people and protecting local communities. And in this particular slide, we can see that there are a lot of multiple benefits, including sustaining the forests, the coastal areas, and the natural capital, reduce land-based degradation, and also improving the resilience of land. And of course, on the other side, we also provide improved well-being, improved livelihood of people, including improving health outcomes. So in the implementation of this program, we believe that empowering indigenous people and local communities as agents of viable climate solutions is an important ingredient for the success of the program. As maybe some of us know, indigenous population comprise less than 5% of the global population, but yet they protect 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. So how will our Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program work? Unlike the other programs that were featured before my presentation, the Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program is a very young program. So we just launched it late last year. And basically, we will be implementing this through a programmatic approach. So we will not be doing a project-by-project approach, but a programmatic approach where we will capitalize on country ownership and the strong relationship that the countries have with the multilateral development banks like the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, International Finance Corporation, and the Inter-American Development Bank. So those are the MDBs we work with in implementing our programs under the CIF, including the Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program. So what do we mean by programmatic approach? By programmatic approach, we mean that we will conduct the implementation of the program in 3 phases. The phase 1 would be a land use diagnostic, where we will enable countries to assess and prioritize the climatic and socioeconomic issues in land use changes of a particular landscape. And on phase 2, we will help countries prepare their investment plan. The investment plan basically will outline the challenges through the diagnostic that was undertaken, and will identify specific types of policy, institutional, and technical assistance interventions and investments that are needed, which can include investments to improve health outcomes. The investment plan will be led and owned by the government and will be supported by relevant stakeholder of the recipient country. The investment plan will define a common vision and a strategic approach for the areas to be targeted, and they will identify specific investment pipeline. And the next phase is the investment implementation and monitoring of catalytic investment projects that are focused on implementing nature-based approaches. So basically, this phase 3 is the actual implementation of investment projects on the ground, the technical assistance and capacity building activities that are needed by the indigenous people and local communities. And at the same time, it will involve the monitoring of results, the monitoring of the outcomes of the different nature-based approaches that were implemented on the ground. And what is unique about the climate investment funds is that we have this flexibility to try different types of financing instrument that we think would help achieve the objectives of our specific programs and projects, like the Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program. So as I have mentioned, this program is still very new, and I think listening from my colleagues here, we don't have to start from scratch. There are a number of initiatives and projects that are already being implemented all over the world. And I think I will bring a lot of knowledge and information back in Washington, D.C. to tell people that a lot of things are happening on nature-based approaches, and there is a lot of entry points for collaboration. And the NAN-Sandbox is actually a very good example, and maybe we can bring some of our countries to learn more about the NAN-Sandbox project. So what you can see from here are the participating countries under the Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program. So far, we have 400 million resources under the Nature, People, and Climate Investment Program, and that will be blended with the financing resources from the multilateral development banks. We are also open to partnering with the private institutions and the private sector, because we know that they bring innovation, they introduce cutting-edge technologies and cutting-edge approaches on addressing climate change and addressing poverty, and of course, improving well-being of people. So far, the 5 recipient countries to receive funding from our program includes Dominican Republic, Kenya, Egypt, Fiji, and we are also implementing a regional program in the Zambezi region, and that will be led by Zambia and will include Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, and Tanzania. And the second round of countries, we continue to fundraise for this program. So the second round of countries that we have now been supporting to prepare the investment plan, and once money becomes available, they will be able to implement those projects they have identified under their investment plan, would include Brazil, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Zambia, and Namibia. So maybe I'll stop from there, but one thing that I think I will bring back here is the importance of collaboration. And as mentioned by Mr. Pipit, having common purpose is an important ingredient to make a particular program like ours to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Lori. That was terrific. I've learned so much already. And yes, there are indeed a lot of entry points for collaboration. And I think that we're seeing some burgeoning collaborations happening right here in this room, right here on this stage. And that's why we're all here, right? Precisely so that we can all come together and collaborate to make a difference and set a new health agenda. And to do that, I always love to leave the last word to youth. Because while they are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of today, as Omnia has taught me, as Ryan said, you know, don't. He made a plea with us during our workshop. It was actually a One Health workshop at the beginning of this PMAC, and he said, you know, we don't need you to come to us and ask us how you can support us. It's the other way around. Tell us how we can support you. So, Ryan, it really is a pleasure to have you here with us. Ryan, for those who don't know, is an environmental scientist and a great youth leader who's actually represented the voices of over 400,000 young people on the challenges and solutions that youth share regarding food systems and the nature and climate crisis. He's also been a strong advocate for many years on nature-based solutions, and rather than exposing full CVs here because they're already all on the internet, Ryan, come here. Tell us, what is it that we need to know to involve youth in nature-based solutions?
Thank you so much, Christina. Well, it's always hard to go last, so please take a second to rejoice with the current moment. Also, Pipit, I'm so sorry. I will have to go into a little bit of jargon, but I have the assumption in my mind that most people here are public health practitioners, so I will keep the environment jargon a little bit light. The fellow panelists have shown you one simple rule today. Take care of the people, and the people will take care of the land. That is basically the rule that they are trying to demonstrate to you. A very simple approach. But before I say that, don't get too hyped up about nature-based solutions. If you, as public health practitioners, don't take a look beyond disease, take a look at diets, exercise, smoking, drinking, all of these things that I haven't heard in this conference, you can forget about all of this giving you the benefits. This is not one key that will unlock the health of human beings. It's the extra thing that you need to be doing. And there are things beyond nature-based solutions that you also need to be considering. So this is not a magic pill. Before you take care of what we need from you to take care of. Second is, if you've ever been to a United Nations climate conference, you'll notice that almost over 1,200 scenarios regarding projections of solutions always put technology at the center. Nature-based solutions are a cheaper option, and they provide benefits for more things than technology. So be very wary of technological advancement when it comes to this. What I'm here to say to you is this requires a lot of more lobbying, and that's why I'm involved in this as a young person. I try to put youth at the forefront of lobbying for nature-based solutions, because no matter how amazing these examples presented to you today are, they are still not the top solution when it comes to climate change. They are one of them, and they are one of the top solutions, but still we need more lobbying to bring them forth at a global policy level. A shout out actually to young people from yesterday's video showing the young boy in the introduction. I think that was really important to show that out of everyone, The young kid, the youth actually saw the problem. So yes, I will begin with this that you're seeing in front of you with this presentation. This is the Global Youth Position Statement on Nature-Based Solutions. Yes, young people do have a voice on this particular topic in specific. This was done in collaboration with 3 of the top youth-led organizations on the planet. Youth for Nature, which I am representing here today. YOUNGO, which is the youth constituency of the UN FCCC, and then Gibbon, Global Youth Biodiversity Network. So we jointly made this position statement together. We surveyed about 2,500 young people from around the planet. That's not enough, I know. We need hundreds of thousands of young people to join in, but this is a start. It's the first time that was ever done. From 118 countries, and you can see all the other things. Just to note that nature-based solutions is a new term for a very old idea. This has been going through generations and thousands of years, but now at the policy level, actually it picked up momentum in 2019. So it's a pretty new term to be used. And here is the trick that we will talk about. Why did this term become famous? Who's using it? Who started to use it? In short, this is the summary, starting off with the positive and then going to the negative. The majority of young people surveyed think that they understand nature-based solutions pretty well. Second off, almost all of them, 82%, are really excited about it. So they also believe in what the IUCN is doing, the WHO is doing. So you have them backing you up. This you can know. They believe in it, that this is the right approach for us to be taken. Now here's the skepticism about it. They are concerned, and you must know why they are concerned. You can see down in the highlighted green words, greenwashing, monoculture. This might be a little bit of jargon to you, but I will explain very slightly. And land grabbing, which is kind of taking land from indigenous people and not respecting their rights. And the last one, which is really important, delayed decarbonization. You cannot keep growing and say, oh, we did some nature-based solutions there. Fantastic, let's keep on growing. It doesn't work this way. You must put a limit to your growth. Oil companies cannot keep growing and then planting trees in some countries. This is not nature-based solutions. The examples you saw today are the real nature-based solutions. That's how you apply them. And it's the private sector that is usually the fishy side into nature-based solutions. And you probably heard of the word offsetting when you took a flight here or anywhere and you said, oh, let me offset my carbon emissions. Yes, that is not the best way still. No judgment though, no judgment. These are the key messages on nature-based solutions. Number one, these practices are not new, as I explained. They are very vulnerable to greenwashing. And if Ali is still hearing us today, the definition that we adopt as the 3 organizations is the official definition of the IUCN. Unfortunately, there are a lot of definitions on nature-based solutions from other organizations. What does this create? Creates room for misinterpretation. And when you can misinterpret something, you can misuse it. And that's why it's prone to greenwashing and offsetting and land grabbing and all of the other problems. So the definition has to be globally adopted by the UN, by whatever global organization responsible for nature-based solutions. So which definition you stick to and how you apply it are really important. And I'm really happy that Ali has presented that there are criteria for how you can apply nature-based solutions. Not just take the definition and move forward in a way that you see fit best. 3, decarbonization remains crucial. We must reduce growth. Without that, nature-based solutions will not really tackle the problem. Biodiversity is not a side effect. When the private sector started to use nature-based solutions, they used it for the very reason to suck the CO2 from the atmosphere, put it in the soil. That is not the only way or the only reason for us to be using nature-based solutions. Biodiversity is not a side effect. We're losing it, and this solution presents that. Ecosystem integrity, I'm not going to mention all of the others, but just one last point on that, which is we need this to become legally binding for us to really approach nature-based solutions with momentum, with great lobbying, with great pressure, to be able to support the work WHO and IUCN are doing. I congratulate them. I'm not representing them officially, but I completely agree with the approaches that they have. I'll give you just a second there. Maybe you could scan it and support that statement from young people. But this is the problem regarding nature-based solutions, is that the room it has opened for misinterpretation is very dangerous. And we've seen that. We've seen it with oil companies. We've seen so many lands in Latin America being grabbed and being planted with one tree, which we call monoculture. You planting one tree is not a forest. It's just one tree of whatever you choose, pine trees or whatever. So that misinterpretation is dangerous. Not to say that leave this room and be afraid of nature-based solutions and don't apply them. No, apply them. Use the case studies you saw today, but be careful of what I mentioned to you. Make sure that you consult again with these organizations that are demonstrating the real case studies and the real solutions. Now, to switch really fast from nature-based solutions to food systems, this work was done by Act for Food, Act for Change, which is the leading youth-led organization that emerged after the UN Food Systems Summit, and it's supported by the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and the Food Foundation. This is a result of a consultation with over 250,000 young people. A lot of them are from China, actually. You might resonate with 80% of what you see. So 8 top 10 priorities out of the 10. You could leave single-use plastic, for example, on the side. Most of these resonate with the case studies you've been seeing here. They resonate with what young people think. And as I told you at the beginning, don't forget our health, our food, our right. Well, how can you say if we prevent disease, but as young children, we don't have access to healthy and nutritious food at school, universities, the workforce, that we're healthy? We're not healthy without all of these. Every child deserves healthy and nutritious food. Every child should eat a healthy and sustainable meal. It's a right. And I'll let you know that last year, the United Nations adopted the official resolution that a clean environment is a child's right. Not to scare you, but children in the UK have taken the government to court using this resolution. Not to scare you, though. Not to, but be careful. So I'm here just to show you the potential that we have in terms of synergies. We actually align with what is being done. This is good. Why? Because this is political pressure. This is what I'm showing you here. I'm not the person applying these case studies. I'm here to show you that this needs lobbying to become very high level, implemented at the global scale. And young people are great. You almost have close to 500,000 people supporting you on this. Hopefully we can get more and more people. To give you maybe an example of how the public health sector can integrate these solutions into their work. UNICEF has produced an approach or a strategy where they took 49 indicators, and sorry that I don't have it on the slides, but I will say it verbally. They have produced 49 indicators that take a look at every country's climate change action plan, which are called the NDCs, National Determined Contributions. And they've assessed those plans according to 49 indicators that reflect child's rights and child's health. And this way, maybe you could take or get inspired by these indicators and take a look at your public health strategies. Do they align with those indicators? Obviously, you will have to subtract a little bit of those indicators or add your own to fit your own strategies. Maybe you could take that as an inspiration and revise your strategies in a way where you look at indicators that reflect human health and child's rights, or child's health. So that is one way that you could actually integrate NBS or nature-based solutions and child's rights or young people's health into your strategies. Be inspired by others. And lastly, I would just want to recommend, those are obviously not the only ways you could do that, but just recommend entry points for both of us to work together. I'm an environmental scientist, you're probably a public health practitioner, and there are 4 key areas I see that are important for us to collaborate on. Number 1 is air pollution. Clearly, we have a lot of data and studies to show that human health is being affected by air pollution. We could collaborate on that part. Second is mental health. Nature-based solutions are, actually, it is the most researched field on nature-based solutions and human health, which is mental health. And a lot of countries, I think, including Canada and the UK now, practitioners can officially recommend their patients to go out to nature as a mental health approach. That is great. Third would be food security, and that includes 2 things: to be able to access food, and then to be able to afford food. Again, without proper food, proper nutrition, there is no health. It's not only about diseases, it's about the pillars of our health, all of them together. And fourth would be about healthy and nutritious food. We need to really talk about what is healthy, what is nutritious, how our body is affected, and beyond the food. But those are, for example, drug abuse and all of these, but these are beyond my field of expertise. So those are 4 things that I would recommend. The last thing that I would like to end on would be that we still haven't been able to directly show causation between, okay, if I apply nature-based solutions, your health will be this way, or it will improve by this much. That we still need to bridge the gap. There's a knowledge gap between the two, and I think when we reach that, we will able to really get the public health sector into our fields or to support nature-based solutions. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. So you've all heard it from Ryan. We all need to work together to tackle air pollution, mental health, food security, nutrition, and nature-based solutions are definitely a part of the solution. As we said at the very beginning of this session, they're not a panacea, but they're an integral part of the solution and can, in fact, represent over 1/3 of the climate mitigation and adaptation potential needed to reach the commitments of the Paris Climate Agreement. So it really is a significant amount of potential. And Ryan, I'm so excited to hear that 82% of youth are very excited about nature-based solutions. I'm not youth, but I'm definitely very excited about nature-based solutions. So now is a question of, of seeing how we can improve the co-design, that implementation, to maximize the co-benefits that nature-based solutions can provide. And you did indicate some very important areas: air pollution, mental health, food security, nutrition. There are others that we've also seen with flooding, with water access to fresh water, sanitation, One Health approaches as being integral. So the entry points really are multiple. So now I think we do have a few minutes left. I have tons of questions for the panelists, but it doesn't matter because I can address those later. What we want to hear are the questions you have for the panelists. So I do encourage you to speak now. We don't have much time for questions, but we can certainly take 1 or 2. So do we have any questions that are arising from the panel? And not just for those that are here with us, but also for Ali and Jonathan, who inspired us from the very, very beginning. Are you still with us? Resilience in action. There we go. I don't know what time it is for you, but I do know that it's very late. So thank you so much for for staying on for the duration of this session. So I see that we have a question from the audience.
Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. This is a question for Jonathan, and the panel has been extremely inspiring, but I had a question around the radical listening. When we listen to the communities, you said very clearly, do not judge them and do not take your biases with you. But at the same time, human greed is not only limited to urbanites, it's with indigenous communities too, right? How do we, without having biases or judging, how do we radically listen? If you can give us one or two examples of that, that'll be great.
Sure. Thank you for the question. It's a long answer. I will say that we provide a consultancy, a training program to help others understand the methodology and how to apply it. And we're accompanying Doctors Without Borders and others, including USAID, who have shown interest in the methodology. Let me just say very quickly that trust communities to come to consensus. Trust that element that you're alluding to. Trust that element of, I don't know exactly what to call it. Let's just say bad actors, which exist across our species. It's human behavior. But trust multiple communities' abilities to come to consensus. That, in our experience, always works itself out. And I know that's not a satisfactory answer. But give ourselves over to their process, their consensus. And the last thing I would say is trusting and ensuring that a reciprocity-based and trust-based approach is guiding your approach, because these communities have the wisdom. They know how to protect their rainforest ecosystems. They've been doing it for thousands of years. We desperately need them to protect their systems. We desperately need the corridors of power and finance to know their solutions and invest immediately in them. We are the beneficiaries of their work.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Jonathan. And I see that we have two other questions. So I saw the lady over here, and then your question will be next. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for an interesting panel. My name is Rita Issa. This is a question for Ryan. I'm Lebanese as well. And something which I feel very strongly when I'm back in Lebanon is that there's a real rupture in the connection to the land. And yesterday we heard from Andrew about you only protect what you love and you only love what you know. And I'm wondering if you have any examples of how you've reconnected young people or communities to the land in order to feel a sense of wanting to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The case of Lebanon is complicated, especially for the past 4 years. It's difficult. I think you could draw an example from the farmers you've seen. Support the farmers and they will support the land. In Lebanon, as young people suffering a lot from the economic crisis, from the explosion that happened and all of these other things, we need to support the young people first so that they could support the land, so that they can be inspired to go back to the land. We actually do have a very capitalistic movement that is happening, which is let's migrate to the city, leave the land, and have a job in the city. It has been difficult to bring the youth in Lebanon back into a nature movement, a movement regarding food systems, because they have not been supported, because they seek economic prosperity first, and that is their complete right to do so, before they can start thinking about For example, I'll just give you one example. It's really difficult to get young people to volunteer at this scale that I'm talking about from that context, because when I'm speaking to other youth from around the world who are actually supported, it's much easier for them. They have an easier life. They have more resources and more time to contribute. Whereas when I speak to a youth from Lebanon, their concern is always, what about this economic problem? What about young people being unemployed? What about the education? What about the electricity, the water? What about all of this? What about the wars and the politics that are happening, before you come to me and tell me, how can I support nature-based solutions? Second is, this is a very small country that gets most of its resources from outside the country. So we're not exporting a lot of products. Most of the harm that we're doing internally is due to forest fires that are happening as a natural result. Sometimes it's not natural. Actually, we found out that most of the time it's actually man-made forest fires. Urbanization of our rural areas. So we don't really have the case of none, which is to produce corn or palm to export. We have not enough space to live in, and that's why we're migrating or cutting down trees. And it's not happening at a really large scale. It's just happening because our strategies of urbanization aren't super well. So Lebanon is always a really complicated situation to bring into this very global discussion. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much.
That was a terrific answer to the question. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. And thank you for bringing the urban area element back into it as well. Yesterday at the opening plenary for Plenary 2, we also had Ikle, who represents hundreds of cities globally, that was talking about nature-based solutions. And they were talking about it very much in the context that you were talking about nature-based solutions. So really the challenges that one faces as you continue to expand and urbanize, but also the opportunities that you have to harness biodiversity and nature to create health promoting environments. So thank you for that response. I think we have time for one last question.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists who shared wonderful inputs about NBS. But I'd like to feedback on your point that there's really no clear impacts between NBS and health. So I'd like to share an experience of how we did NBS to impact directly health outcomes. I'm from the Philippines. I'm a mayor of a town. Siargao was voted 2021 #1 island in Asia. But prior to that, we were in a very bad situation wherein we had to sell kidneys to survive. So that's our story.
Yep.
And with NBS, we were able to turn it around.
Yep.
Banking on a vast mangrove forest, we started to focus on behavioral change. NBS is a framework to address social determinants of health. And in the process, we were able to create livelihood, protect our community from storm surges, and the direct benefit towards health was that people had bigger income because we were able to introduce new industries because we were protecting a nature reserve with high-value marine products and ecotourism products as well that we were introduced to the public, resulting to almost zero maternal mortality, very small infant mortality. Malnutrition decreased from 26% in 2010 to roughly less than 1% around this year, despite being hit by a super typhoon in 2021. So what I'm trying to share is nature-based solution is actually a framework to address social determinants. And there are already existing evidence that proves that it can work if it's framed correctly. It's not to be hyped. It is a framework wherein governance has to come in, management has to come in, and leadership, more importantly, has to understand that it is a framework that will work. Just to give our panelists something to hold on to. Thank you.
It seems that we are having never-ending inspiration in this session on the integration of health and nature-based solutions. So thank you very much for sharing that example. And we very much hope that at the next PMAC, you are on this stage expanding on that example and have the opportunity to share it further. But now I'm afraid that we have come to the close of the session. It would be great to have more time to discuss this, but this is just the beginning of the journey. As we said, we would love to hear from you. If you have examples such as these to share, we would love to hear from you, all of us, I'm sure, and continue this dialogue over the next couple of days and weeks and months ahead. And now I would like to give, maybe in a very rapid fire session, 30 seconds to each of the panelists, starting with Ali and Jonathan, who have diligently waited all this time despite the late hour, to inspire us. What is your final message of inspiration, Ali? What is the take home you want to leave with people in this room?
Thank you, Christina. Wonderful to listen to all the speakers. Just take away one quick message is that we must have standards to follow when we are trying to implement NBS. Without those, all those things which have been pointed out by Rayan and others, those are a possibility. So following standards will help us to have equity, to work with local indigenous people and respect and not going for monoculture and other things. So following standard is a must and should be non-negotiable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Jonathan.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Ali. Following the lead of IUCN and WHO, I would humbly suggest here that when it comes to outmaneuvering humanity's grand challenges today, the climate crisis, the collapse of nature, and social injustice, I would humbly submit that no institution that exists on the planet is built for the purpose of outmaneuvering and solving these crises. Why? Because every institution is fundamentally siloed. I would ask everyone in the audience to please return to your agency, your firm, your institution, and please try to follow the lead of Christina, Ali, and Health and Harmony and break down your historical siloed mandates and go forward in collaboration and intersectionally and operationalizing the interdependence that we have with nature.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Yes, breaking through the silos is very important. And so what would you suggest? Elizabeth, some final words of inspiration.
Sure. Well, hopefully these will counter some other words of skepticism about the private sector being a bit fishy, perhaps. But building on the standards that Ali was mentioning, I think there really is a role for the private sector. Yeah. We know that public funds are stretched. Donor funding will never be able to overcome some of these challenges. So we really can reach out across those silos and work with the private sector. So there's hope. It can work.
Brilliant. So moving on to the private sector. Yeah. What does the private sector have to say about this? I think you're from there. Oh, is the microphone not working?
Yeah,
sorry.
I think you're from there. You could. Okay, thank you. Mine is
Thank you. Thank you. From private sector standpoint, something I learned very much about is that we are now in a turning point and the transition of everything, right? So I just would like to quote, the Chinese old saying, philosopher, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single first step. So upon return, upon arrival to your workplace, to your home country, begin your first single step to act.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much. Lori.
I think one thing I want to share is our lessons in the implementation of our programs and projects, and that is about scale. I think we need scale in order for nature-based solutions to provide the results that we need to address climate change, to address the health issues that we are confronted with. And with scale, we will be able to protect nature, we will be able to protect people, and we will harvest those triple dividends of reducing losses, improving health outcomes, improving income, and protecting livelihoods of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And last word, Ryan.
As well, the last one.
Ah.
I think you noticed in my presentation that there was no consultation with young people on nature-based solutions and human health. So we owe you that, actually.
Yes.
That is something we need to work on for the next year. The second would be, we'd love to work with the public health sector on devising national toolkits for how to implement MBS and integrate them into human health. So those are two things I'd like to move after this conference with. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you all for being here with us and moving forward for the co-design and co-development and implementation of nature-based solutions and working toward, cross-sectorally toward common understandings and common purpose. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.